Here, read this.
Woof.
If you're trying to discern whether someone is in league with Satan, there are a number of ways to find them out. You could search their body for the devil's mark, but this is very time-consuming and you might have to shave their pubes and stuff. If you want an easier option, you could just ask them what their favourite book is, and if they say The Wind in the Willows, then they're guilty. The guards at Westminster Abbey are well aware of this association, and last week a woman was refused entry because she was wearing a jumper with an illustration from Wind in the Willows on it. It's the illustration of Pan from Chapter 7, The Piper at the Gates of Dawn. It was used as the front cover for the first edition, originally illustrated by Graham Robertson and reused by the folklore magazine Hellebore. The unfortunate jumper wearer, Lindsay Teggett, explained to the Westminster Abbey guard that this was the god Pan and not what he thought was an image of the devil. She started to describe how within Westminster Abbey there are carvings of figures from folklore, dragons, green men, and so forth. But the Westminster Abbey guard was not having it, saying, quote, "Well, it's got horns and it's demonic." And I've got to be honest, and I don't want to sound too much of a narc here, but I sort of see where the guard is coming from. I mean, if you try to go into Westminster Abbey dressed as a Balrog, I'd expect you'd probably have the same result, you know, where you've got demonic horns, you're breathing fire, you've got hooves, you've got the kinky whip, you're not getting in. It's no good saying, no, it's an entirely secular demon. Listen to me, it's an entirely secular demonic entity. It's not Satan, it's just Satan inspired. Anyway, there's a happy ending really, because Westminster Abbey have said that they might have got it wrong on this occasion and invited Teggett back for tea and cake. What's kind of interesting about this story is how it reflects the way Willows is sometimes talked about as being a banned book. You look around on YouTube and you might find some somewhat overexcited videos talking about how there's a secret controversial history to Wind in the Willows and how it has been censored for its depiction of the pagan god Pan, and how the chapter in which he appears, The Piper at the Gates of Dawn, has often been removed from editions of the book. As indeed it was. You may have an edition of The Wind in the Willows missing The Piper at the Gates of Dawn, but there is very little evidence that that was motivated by a sense of scandal, that it was removed for moral reasons, as opposed to plot simplification for editions aimed at younger readers. Willows is a very episodic novel. There is the main narrative of Mr. Toad and his scrapes and his eventual return to Toad Hall, but in and amongst those are alternating stories of Mole and Rat out on their own, rediscovering Mole's old home, and then the encounter with the Piper. There's Rat's encounter with the seafarer. Often these are the chapters that get abridged to centralise the narrative around Mr. Toad. It's often the story you see in adaptations as well for the same reason. Suggestions of abridged forms of Wind in the Willows happened during Graham's lifetime, and he was always dead against it. He was asked at one point whether a chapter could be excerpted on its own, and here is a response to give you a flavour of his attitude. "I quite appreciate the remark that the very heaviness of the cuts would render the abridgment less likely to interfere with the ordinary edition, but that is not quite my present point, which is that I do not care about having a form or version of the story in print which has been cut down, not for any literary reason, such as redundancy or verbosity, or parts being not quite suited for children, or too much over their heads, and so on, but the purely arbitrary and trade reason of getting it within 192 pages, though I fully understand and sympathise with the hard necessities of trade. I can't abridge satisfactorily without loss of quality, and that's the long and short of it." So you get a sense there of Graham being against abridgment on principle, but also what reasons for abridgment were being put forth. There isn't a whiff of, The Piper at the Gates of Dawn being just too salacious. Later critics have talked about some of the homoerotic undertones of that chapter, but I don't think that has ever been so widely appreciated to get the chapter banned. And again, as for it being controversial on first release, remember that the very image that Lindsay Teggett was banned from Westminster Abbey for was the front cover of the first edition. I think it's fair to say that in 1908, the reading public were perhaps more literate in their pagan deities. The irony here is the way in which things have come full circle. The abridgments were made for commercial purposes, streamlining the story, making it more marketable and digestible for children. But now, since it's very trendy and marketable to have a shelf of banned books in your bookshop, those abridgments are interpreted as being motivated by moral outrage. And so The Wind in the Willows is sat rather ludicrously alongside Lolita and the Satanic Verses.